What's up, everybody? Well, I just got me a new toy for this summer. I've been putting it off, and I finally bit the bullet and bought a new grill. And today I'm going to show you how to assemble this thing, and I hope that it might be able to help you. So let's talk about it for a little bit. So the grill I bought is replacing an old Char-Broil grill I had, and I like Char-Broil. It's been a good grill for me. This is the Amplifier model 550-6272, and it's the 3-burner, and I'm sure that some of this stuff will carry over into the 2-burner and 4-burner series that's made the same way, but this is the particular one I'm putting together today. So that being said, let's do some unboxing and looking around. All right, let's get this thing undone here. Cut off these straps, and by the way, this thing is heavy. So if you're hauling it by yourself, use some hand trucks or something, or be a bodybuilder. That's all I can tell you. Everything's nice and packaged inside of this. So we're going to just start taking out the pieces, and then I'll get back with you and show you what all of them are. Okay, just something to point out here. I've opened the lid of it. It's still in the base, but I've removed the styrofoam from the sides and stuff. Open your lid up. There's more parts inside, so don't panic if you don't think you have everything. The rest of it's inside, so let's unbox all this too. All right, as you can see, I've got it out of the box finally. This is about 20 minutes later, and done a lot of unpackaging, and you can see around, I've just kind of put all the pieces around my deck here so I can find them easily whenever I get to it. And we've got our hardware there. We got stuff laying around up here, the pieces. That's just how I'm organizing it. So do it however you need to do. If you got a good workbench or something like that, that's great. I'm going to be assembling it on this little table here. All right, the first thing I'm doing here is referring to the manual. The manual's important. Seriously, you got to go by the instructions or you'll never get together. So anyway, I'm referring to the manual, and the instructions and parts are about halfway through. So we'll just go ahead and start with that. Another thing I've already done, like I said, I've laid everything out. And another thing I've done is open up the back of this package here. I just use the utility knife and cut on these scores. That way I can see what part number I'm getting out. Looks like the D bolts, we'll call them the D screws or whatever, are going to be the most common one, since that's the most of them there. But and be careful not to drop all these everywhere or just dump them out. It just makes it a lot easier if you can use the references on it, and I will refer to it by whatever the book's referring to for the reference. Like if it's calling for a number F or a letter F, I'll just say that, okay? So let's get started. Let me advise you against using this on a project like this. It's real easy sometimes to strip things out. So just go with your handy dandy Phillips screwdriver. I think that's what this one calls for. It might save you a lot of trouble in the long run because you get to hammering down on that screw gun, tear something up, and then you're in a fix. So, okay, the first thing we're going to do is install this eye bolt here. This was in the bubble pack, and it's just got like a 1/4 inch nut on the back. And we're going to just put it, I've got it oriented where this little slot right here is at the front, so that way I know when I'm looking at the picture what to look at or which way to look at it. So we'll just go ahead and tighten that up a little bit. Let me go grab me a 1/4 inch right quick. All right, that's tight. So let's move on to the casters here. There's a little tool that's in the bubble pack. It looks like 2 little claws on it. And what you want to do is line these holes up on that right there so it don't, I mean, I done it backwards there, but so it don't spin when you screw these in. So let's, and these just simply screw in right there. And it's just to keep the caster from spinning around and around while you're installing them. So we'll put this in just like that. give it a good snug twist and take the thing out and do the same thing for this one. Good and snug, remove that, put it away somewhere. You're probably not going to ever use it again, but you'll have it. We're moving on to the bigger wheels here. Should have 2 of these, and then you got like 2 plastic washers, you got a plastic spacer, you got a little pin that you're going to run through it, and then you got a cap. So what we're going to do is, and this is our axle here, we'll call it an axle, and the way this goes is you just run the axle through right here like that and let it sit, and then on both sides back here you're going to put a washer here like that right there, and then you're going to slide it through just through these 2 holes here. You're going to put a plastic washer here, and then we're going to put on our other wheel here, and then you'll put on your spacer right there, and then you'll run your little pin through it like that there. You see how that is? I just run that pin through, and then you'll put your cap on this side here. We'll call that a hub cap, because that'll look nice and pretty on the front, I guess. So at this point we can flip it over, and I'm going to put the front facing this way towards you, and we'll start putting it together. I'm putting it together on this right here for the base of it anyway, because I don't want to crawl around on the deck. All right, next thing I'm gonna do is put on the first magnet, which is gonna be down here at the bottom. It's calling out for 2 of these flat-headed screws that are labeled G on my book. Yours may vary, I guess, but we're gonna start out with just starting them by hand if you can get your hands on them, and kind of that way you don't want to cross thread anything, because these little nutserts can be fragile sometimes and you can pop off, and then you got a whole different problem. That's why I said don't use the screw gun on this stuff, because sometimes it causes more problems. All right, that's tight. Now we're gonna go ahead with our sides, and they're identified and labeled right here. I don't know if you can see it good, but it says B and A, like inside the tabs, it's stamped in there. So that gives you a little tip. I couldn't find any numbers or anything, but on the picture it does show a A and a B. So we're gonna get it and start with the little brace on the inside. All right, the piece you're gonna be looking for is this piece with this stainless, and you can see the little legs on it, and it's going to mount up here at the top where the letters are, A and B. That's the side we're going on. So you just put it up, work the screws in up here, and then these little legs, you might have to maneuver around a little bit to get them to line up. So we're using the most common screw now, which is the D. It says D on it. But I'm going to just start that real loose, so I can get this thing aligned without tearing anything up. So there that is. I'm going to set this down because we've got a couple more little things we need to do here. All right, next thing we're going to be doing is this little rubber washer or rubber stopper. There's a tiny little washer and a screw, and the screw's going to go through here, and then the little flat washer goes on the back like this here. That's called it was labeled as R, S, and P. Those are the 3 pieces here, and there's a hole back over here on the A side of this rail that it's going to go into. So I just set that down there like that and push in our little rubber stopper there. So just reviewing real quick, we put on this piece here, we put this little screw right here with the stopper and that little tiny washer This is the A column, and here's a better look at the what I was telling you about here. You can see it says B. I don't know if it'll show up good or not, but all right, I've set the base up here. Again, like I said, I want to try to do as much as I can up high so I don't have to bend over and crawl on the floor and everything, because I can't handle all that. So first thing I'm going to do is grab our piece that we had with the this silver piece on it, and what we're going to do is put it over here on the same side the magnet's on. Okay, so we'll start a couple screws here, and it's important that this be on this, and don't mix them up and put it on the wrong side, because you got a piece of angle that's going to be going up in a minute that's going to go right here, and if you've got them on backwards, it's not going to go right. So and now we'll grab the other side and mount it right here. Another 3 screws on this side. All right, now that we've got our sides on, this little piece of angle iron is going to go right here. See the 2 screws and that screw there, a hole. Like I said, if you had it on backwards, it wouldn't line up. So, and the way you can do this is go ahead and start these, because there's slots in the piece of angle. So just start. These are again the D screws, and we're just putting those in. And then if you'll notice, there's a little slot here that you can just put that on and it'll drop down. And then you can work back behind this, get that one started with your finger, and there's a hole that you can run your screwdriver down through. So you're probably going to need a longer Phillips than I have right now, but you can run these holes here, so you can run through like that right there. And as I suspected, I'm going to need a longer Phillips, so let me go grab that. All right, I had to get a longer screwdriver, but it fit right through that hole there, and you can go ahead and tighten that down. So note to self, you're going to need a long Phillips screwdriver. All right, so here's the back panel, and it's going to go where, let's see here, these extra holes, there's some extra holes right here. It's got 4 on this one, and then you got 2 on this one. The one with 2 on it, 2 holes, is going to the bottom. Okay, so we'll just put this in back here and see, get it lined up. The extra holes on tops for other pieces to hook into. So let's get the hardware for this. All right, I've got 4 more of these D screws, and we're just going to line them up here and just start all of them again without tightening them down until the very end. So let's get these in. All right, we have our back panel in now, so let's move on. All right, only one more thing to do before we set this off. These 2 little wire rack holders or whatever, they just slide in up here at the top. It's like a little tab up here. You just push that in like that, and then it's calling for 2 of the screws labeled F to go down at the bottom. So let's attach these right quick, and we can move on to some other good fun stuff. Now these things don't sit all the way down in there, so when you're positioning it in there, you might have to move it around a little bit. So let's go ahead and tighten that up real good. Do the same on this side. All right, so at this point we're done with the base. We're getting ready to set this off and move over to the top part. All right, I've got that up on the table. I had to prop this up behind it just to keep the lid from bolting completely open on it. All right, we're going to put our magnet on this part here, and you want the little things there facing outward. So there's only 2 screws, and they're labeled G. And let's put them let's get this in here. So there's that. Like I said, you want the flat part facing out here, and then all that going back the other way. So there's the magnet, and now the next thing we want to do is put our other little piece over here. Now we're going to install this piece here, and this is going to go up behind this piece here, and then we're going to install the screw on this side. Now I know it's a little tricky looking, but just push it up in there behind it, and your nut certs are actually in this piece here, so we'll just tighten these up, get that one started nice, and then we'll put the other screw in here. And you want the, well, you'll see it, the recess faces downward, the hole does, so. And we'll set this one up like that, good and snug. Alright, so we have that and that. Let's move on. Okay, so our rails here, this little lip here that's got the 3 holes in it and a threaded hole in the middle, what you want to do is go to the back side. This is the back, and this will go into that slot, and then you turn it this way here and you put the screw in there. So you got to slide it into the slot, and it only makes sense to go one way because you got to, this is going to be your drip pan. So when they're in there, they've got to be able to hold the drip pan. So you want the angles lined up to where it'll hold the drip pan. So let's get 2 of those F screws and put those in. So you see how it's in the slot, and you just go through that hole there. So just do the same for both sides. All right, now that we've got our magnet on, our bracket here on, and our drip tray brackets on, we're going to set it up on the stand. And the book requires 2 people. It says get a person to help you. If you're by yourself, it is heavy, a little heavy. So just you don't, lift properly and all that good stuff. But I'm going to set this on the stand. This is calling for the D screws here, and we'll just go ahead and set this in there, or get these in. I have the handle, and these are the 2, I don't know if you can see them, that's the 2 E screws. They've got a little washer already on them, a lock washer and all that stuff. So I'm gonna run one through so I can see what I'm doing. Sticking up there, I'll set the handle down on it and tighten it just enough so the screw don't fall back out. All right, let me explain something before we move on. I got the screws in, but while I was doing that, this one over here fell down behind this plate. So when you're putting the handle on, it's really best you probably need to have a good magnetic screwdriver so that thing don't just slide off. There's a little space here, so be careful when you're putting the handle on to push it up through there. And if you got a magnetic screwdriver, that's going to help a lot. So you can take this thing apart. I had to take it apart to retrieve it, but that was an hour ago, so now I'm back on track. We've got our handle on. We've got it mounted to the stand. The next thing is to put the old knobs on. So there's a slot in it to where it won't go on but one way. So we'll line them up and push them on. All right, next thing we're going to do is put on these little rails here. The indention part is going to go on here. So what we're going to do is it won't line up but one way, and you want the beveled part going to the outside there. So if it's lining up and you're not facing the beveled outside, then you got it backwards, and it's going to be a little overhang right here. And we're using the F screws for this. Just run these down, get them nice and snug, just like that. And we'll repeat the process for the other side. Okay, so right now we're going to put one of the screws in that's a C, labeled C, and then we're going to put the one in back here named D. So, and you don't want to tighten them up, you want to leave a good little space because you're going to hang the rack up there. So we'll move on to that. All right, now that I've got the screws in the side, we're going to set the shelves up on there. There's a slot right here that's big at the bottom, so you can put it on and then drop it down into this slot up here and it'll stay in place, and then it'll give you a chance to bolt everything else in there. And that one's lined up. Now let's do the other side. All right. And now, old big boy gonna have to get on his knees and do a little bit of work here, so up and under it. All right, so there's the first screws we put in to hold it on, and then you only had to put 1, 2 more, and then over here at the front you had to put a F screw that's labeled F right there on that front place right here, so don't forget that one. All right, let's move to the other side. I'm not going to film that side, but you can kind of see how things are going together here. Just 4 screws there and 1 in the front. So, all right, we're down to the final piece, the knob here. If you take it apart, you can see that spring loaded. That's where your battery will go. There's a nut on here that you'll need to take off, just like this. And on the back, there's some terminals. There's nothing really numbered or anything, but there's 3 small terminals here and 2 right here. And really this kind of dummy proof. You can only plug it up one way. So I'm going to get this installed, and then we'll plug everything, or I'm going to plug it up as I'm installing it, and we'll go from there. This is the igniter, so we'll get this thing going so we can make some fire. Okay, so I'm down here, and all this stuff stacks together and comes out the front of the bracket you installed earlier. So you have to hold the little box in place, this little metal box, and the igniter. I've got it all hooked up. You can see all the wires in there. You can tie strap this a little better if you want to. But yeah, so we just screwed the screw back on. We'll put our battery in here, put the cap on. All right, on the cap, I don't know if you can see it or not, but it's showing the battery, the point facing out, so we'll screw the lid on it here and test it out and see if it sparks. All right, screws on just like that there. Now we'll push the button and see what happens. You hear it? I hear it. That's a good thing. So that's hooked up. Let's move on to the door. That's the last piece, I think. All right, by the time you get to this point, you should have only 2 screws left. So whatever's left on the door, install it. And then we're going to install our little handle here on the door, so, and then we'll put it on the grill. All right, for the door here, there's a pin down here. You want to align that, and there's a pin up here that you press it. So what we'll do is put this in. So yeah, that little button, you got to press it up, and you got to use a little force. If you got to, I just put a screwdriver up there and pushed it up until it got started. It'll pop into place, and there we have our door. So our drip tray goes in back here just like this. And it'll sit right there. And then we're going to install our emitters. And the one for this particular one, yours might be different if it's a different size, but this one goes on the left. And then it also says this side up, so, and then this one here goes next to it. And then the final one. So. And they fit in there just like this right here. So, and then we'll put our grates on top and be ready to cook some food after we get the gas in it. It says this side up, so make sure you do that, and also make sure they're overlapped right here on the seams. I don't think it'll go in there any other way. All right, I've got the propane hooked up, and I'm going to do a soak test on it here in just a second. One cool thing about this is this gauge here, let you know your propane level. So let's turn it on. Yeah, see there it comes up. Got gas. So that's awesome. I like that little feature there. But I'm gonna turn this back off for a second until I do a soak test. So here it is, fully assembled. You can see that the when you put the grates in, make sure that you see these little holes here, make sure they line up underneath the grates. Okay, so but I've got the rack installed. We got our nice things here. We've got the propane installed. I've got a griddle option with mine, so I've got it stowed away in there. Hey, I hope this was beneficial to you. If you have one of these, if you've had one, leave a comment in there and let me know what you think of yours. This, like I said, this is replacing an old one. And while you're here, if you look in the description, I'll have a full review on my old one and this one. But that'll be a little bit down the road because I want to test it out a little bit. So, hey, till next time, go grill you some food and may the Lord bless you.